Is Capacities the Obsidian replacement that you've been looking for? Well, I've been using Capacities for roughly a month now, and I have some feedback on it, and I want to give some perspective on the differences between Capacities and Obsidian, so that if you are an Obsidian user and you've been having some challenges with it, and most of those challenges are wrapped around being productive versus tweaking and building the environment itself, then I think you should probably take a look at Capacities and give it a fair shake, because it's a lot simpler and there's a lot less dials to kind of turn and tweak, and I think it's more suited for getting things done and being more productive. So let's talk about it. Now, some of the things that cause me friction with Obsidian, and these are not, I don't want to rant on about either of these here, because there's pros and cons to both. The first one is the community plugins. They provide a lot of features and that do not come with the core application. So one of the things here is, but one of the cons that comes with leveraging the community plugins is that, one, you do not have any promise or guarantee of long-term support. There is no promise of how fast they will fix problems. So if you have any conflicts or issues with the plugin, yeah, they're just doing this stuff on their own time, on their own dime. In some cases, they do take donations for the most part, but again, there is no promise of support or additional features to be added to these community plugins that are out there. Now, if you're capable of creating your own plugins, then this could be a really good benefit, because you're your single throat to choke if you don't get what you want out of the plugin that you create. And then there's also the issue where you could have incompatibility between different community plugins and also the core application itself. So there's kind of a level of risk you're taking by leveraging a lot of community plugins. And if you take a look at let's just go into my Obsidian community plugins area, and we can see that I have a fair amount, 22 plugins that are set up in here. There's only one turned off, and that's because sometimes it creates certain issues for me within the environment, so I've been turning it off and on, but it really enhances the user experience with Capacities. And some of these plugins that I have in here I don't use like all the time, but they are things that when I need them, I want them to be there, and they're not built into the core of the application itself. So let's move on from that there, just to show you that there are a bunch of plugins that are in here. And then the other one is folders, and somewhat related to one of the cons with it is that these plugins, some of them could rely on a folder within your vault, and when you go in there and you configure that folder, everything's fine unless you change the name of the folder or move that folder somewhere outside of the path of the setting that you have in here. And I've already run into this a few times where I get a change of opinion or within my mind of how my folder structure should be laid out. I go in there and I make a change, and the next thing you know, either a plugin stops working, some functionality stops working, or something kicks in where I may have set it up in here and it's more automated. Things start moving around on you where you probably didn't expect it, because you didn't remember that you had some kind of setting or automation set up for those particular folders. So those are cons that you could have with that there. And the other thing with folders in general is that you basically can, when you set up these folders, you can only have a particular file in one folder. So if you want that to be associated with, say, different things, your folders are set up by a subject, either personal or business, where this thing might be related to both of those things. You can't have that one file in both of these folders. So you can leverage tags. The issue with Obsidian and tags, unless you have a plugin, the first class citizen within Obsidian is folders and files. So I cannot come into this file tree here and add, say, a tag in here as a logical representation within the hierarchy of my Explorer and my navigation pane here. There are plugins that can get you that, but again, this is another thing that you have to rely on and make sure that it continually is working within this setup. Now, I don't want to make it sound like I have tons of issues with Obsidian and the plugins to where, you know, it's just a nightmare. But I have enough of them to where it's concerning to me. And also I find myself spending way too much time browsing through the plugins within Obsidian. And Capacity doesn't have that issue. So you come in here, you have your set amount of settings that you can come in here and set up. But most of these are set it and forget it type configurations. You set it up, and then you just leverage it within your normal day-to-day. You can come in here and you can configure these objects, which is a replacement for folders. You also can configure collections, and you can do queries as well. You can also see here, like on this inbox, where I've pinned a tag, and this shows that tags and objects and all this stuff can be leveraged here from a navigational standpoint. So when I want to have access to a certain set of content, if I tag it appropriately, I can have that tag show up here on the side, so I can easily navigate to get to that information or that data, or those objects, or, you know, collection of objects within the environment here. So I think this is very powerful to have these objects and collections and queries the way they've set up Capacities to give you all that flexibility. So I think if you're coming from the world of Obsidian and you've had those challenges with community plugins and folders in general, then I think you're going to find this much more refreshing when you get into this environment and you figure out how it works. It's not that complicated. There is a difference, so you will, in many cases, just come in, and when you're doing your tweaking, you're doing your tweaking on the objects themselves and what properties they may have, which you can still do in Obsidian as well. And if you've leveraged properties in Obsidian, this should be fairly easy to get used to. Some other things out of the box here is also with the navigation and the visualization of your objects that you have in here. I think these are, again, this is out of the box. There's no plugin needed here. If I want to see all of my books in a list format, I can see that. If I want to see it in a wall view, a gallery view, or even a table, I can get those different views here to my liking and not have to worry again about installing some extra functionality through a community plugin to get this. It's right out of the box. And then there's the, you know, when you open up the object itself, you can still come in here and you can set up things to where you can show properties. You see your tag here, your title. You see what that object is. You can change this object and convert it to something completely different. You can add it to collections. You can set descriptions, and you even have where you have this little symbol here, look like maybe little stars or something there. You can leverage automation to either fill in some of the fields that you have here in the properties, or you can even just open up the chat here and ask AI for information. You can have it based on the actual object. So here I can add this object to this particular chat window, so when I'm prompting it for information, it can leverage that within that prompt. I can still come in here and customize things, like I can add a banner across the top. If we go to another, let me go to pages here, and we can see here where let's go to Studio for the Mind here. This is one of their example objects that they have in here for a page, where I can still set up banners, I can set up icons here. And these are things that, again, if you have a plugin in Obsidian, you can get some of this functionality, but it's a bolt-on. So if Obsidian is great for those who want to build their own environment and make it what they want it to be. Capacities is more of an out-of-box experience, to where everything's already built in. And I do get a feel here of Notion when I take a look at this here, but it's not Notion, and it's much more performant than Notion in a lot of cases, but there is no database feature. So if you think you're going to get the database that you get out of Notion within Capacities here, you would not get that piece. But you also don't have that in Obsidian unless you're installing one of the plugins to get that additional functionality. So being able to customize the look and feel of your objects to your liking, I think it's just enough where they don't go overboard with it, to where, like in Obsidian, you can start editing the CSS, which again is powerful, but sometimes because it's there and you can do it, doesn't mean you should do it. So having the most of the features that you would be looking for already available into the core parts of the product, I think is a better way of kind of going about it. Now, you do get some additional stuff here outside of just being able to create objects and then have your own collections underneath them. So we didn't go too much into the collection. So like here I got places, and then I've set up places where they're countries, states, and cities underneath here. For books, I can have different collections, like for either mystery, horror, spiritual, and set up collections to where those books objects are separated within this top level. Same thing with media here, where I can have videos and music set up in different collections. This is again more intentional to me, and I don't get that feel that the objects that I'm creating are confined to this particular location, because if I create things within media and books and places, I can still create a query that pulls all that stuff into one location. So that's pretty nice. And if we go into, I think I talked about the AI already, you do get a daily journal in here, so you get a timeline, and a lot of things even down at the bottom here, they can show you things that you created or that were created this day, and you do get like a timeline view, especially if you start leveraging the slash, and let's say the now timestamp or the date property within your different objects. You can start seeing things in the timeline view, or from a timeline perspective. If I go into the settings here, we get to one, you can kind of come in here, you can see all the different object types that you can use here that are out of the box. You can create your own custom ones, and again, you can slice and dice objects however you like. You get the AI assistant, and one benefit here, and I love the way that they implemented this, is that they give you the access to leverage your own OpenAI API. So if you don't want to leverage theirs, you can completely turn theirs off and enter in your API key here and leverage it as much as you want to, without that fear that they have or they're pulling in your information and using it to train the AI in the background. Now, one thing that they do not have is end-to-end encryption, so they technically still could see your information on their back-end servers if someone really wanted to, which in Obsidian, if you're using Obsidian Sync, you get the ability to have that end-to-end encryption. So that is one thing that is missing from Capacities that could give some people pause to for leveraging this particular solution. But they're, again, going into all the other capabilities, maybe that one thing is outweighed by all the other value that is brought to the table here. You have task actions where you can, within your workspace here, if I'm in here and I have tasks that I must do, I can come in here. Let's just say I must do this one here, and if I want to, I can't do this right now or today, I can actually send this over to one of my configured task management, project management applications that are supported here within Capacities. And there are a few that are supported. So let me go to task actions, and you have Todoist, you have Google Tasks, you have Microsoft To Do, where you can set those up. And if I come to the bottom here, we can see a few more where you have Apple Reminders, you have Things, and you can also set up a webhook, which when having access to the webhook can pretty much just open the door to any task management app that's out there. You do get access to their API, you get web extension, there is ability to send stuff via email, they got Telegram through WhatsApp, there's other integrations within here that you can set up. So I think there's just enough stuff in here that you can set up. These are mostly set it and forget it, and many of them are more just integrations with other services or solutions that are out there. An area of improvement, and one that might again be another thing that gives some people pause, is that you don't have automated backups here, and you do not get history right now. So if you're in your object and you're making changes to it and you fat finger something, you can do the Command Z and kind of go back and undo stuff, but you do not get a history. So if you don't figure out that you're missing something, or you made changes with as you're doing them, you won't be able to get that information back by doing a restore from a version history type of setup. You can come in here and you can say create backup and add in any of these other options, and what will happen is they will send you a link through email that you can download this information via email. So it does come down in a format to where I have had some issues where either I did not get the email, and then in some cases I've also seen where either some images or certain things might not be in the actual backup itself. So this is another area that could probably improve and be a little bit better, where you're getting a full backup of everything that you put within your Capacities environment here, the space, and you know that when you pull that data down, it's complete. A couple other things, so you get tables in here. You can do tables in Obsidian, but in here you can get formulas and functions that you can kind of set up to do, some of your basic stuff from addition, subtraction, multiplication, and things like that. You can have side-by-side blocks that you can place one block next to others in a horizontal, way. And this is something that, again, you can do this in Obsidian, but not out of the box. This is something that you would have to actually either install a plugin or mess with CSS in order to get this here. You can share your objects to other people, and that's out of the box. I talked about the task actions. I talked about AI for a little bit there. I mentioned offline is still a work in progress. It's somewhat there, and I have had some synchronization issues. So yeah, this can be improved. They have their mobile app, and they also just released a tablet app in beta for their believers, which they work well. There's some initial feedback from the tablet app that if you take a look at one of my videos I did on this one here, it's new, it's in beta, but there's definitely some improvements that could be had on that front. In general and overall, I think that Capacities is or can be a pretty good replacement for Obsidian. I'm going to continue using this app, and I think that I will probably start migrating most of my information to here. Obviously, it won't be any of the sensitive stuff because they do not have end-to-end encryption. But given the added benefit of not being overwhelmed with plugins and configurations that could be done, and just being able to come in here, set up your objects, and just start getting things done, I think is of great value. There are some things that are on the roadmap that looks pretty interesting, like integration with calendar apps like Google, which is not something that's out of the box with Obsidian, even though you could leverage plugins over there. But even some of the plugins I've leveraged for the calendar syncing or integration, that's been hit or miss on over there as well. So it would be nice to see what comes from Capacities in that, from that vein, and adding in that calendar integration. But not having it is not a real loss to me because I don't have it in Obsidian. And another one that could be a deal breaker for most people is that there is no canvas or whiteboarding functionality. Obsidian obviously has their own core canvas plugin that you can leverage, and they also have a SkeleDraw, which kind of takes it above and beyond what Canvas can do within there. It is a plugin, but I think it's one of those essential plugins. If you're going to leverage Obsidian and you want visual note taking, SkeleDraw is a big win. Now, some of the features that I mentioned are pro, but they do have a pretty generous free tier, and if you've even thought about leveraging this product and you don't have reservations about end-to-end encryption, I think this is one that you should probably look at, especially if you've been having some of the similar challenges with either folders or plugins on the Obsidian side. I think you should really check this one out. Alright, so I've talked long enough. I've given my feedback on this one. I'm going to continue looking into this one here. I'm also looking at AnyType, which gives you that end-to-end encryption, but its functionality on mobile I found to be lacking. So yeah, we'll kind of see what shakes out here as I put these two head to head, the Capacities and AnyType, and we'll kind of see which one comes out on top for me here in the near term. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. If you like the content on this channel and it brings you any kind of value, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and until the next time, have a nice day.